My sister kicked me out of her wedding for having burn scars, then begged me for $15,000. I walked away and built a legacy instead. My older sister has always been the golden child in our family. Growing up, she was that tall, blonde, athletic head cheerleader type who peaked in high school but never realized it. The kind who had her own parking spot at parties and made freshmen carry her books. Meanwhile, I was the quiet bookworm who got decent grades and minded my own business. I had my small circle of ride-or-die friends, while Melanie had her army of basic clone followers who all wore the same stuff and talked the same nonsense. Our parents, both 58, never admitted they had a favorite, but it was obvious. Dad would beam with pride at Melanie's mediocre soccer games, but had meetings during my academic awards. Mom kept a shrine of Melanie's homecoming photos on the mantle, but tucked my college acceptance letter in a drawer somewhere. A classic one kid gets the spotlight, one gets the shadows dynamic. For context, I wasn't born looking like a burned marshmallow. 3 years ago, I got caught in a nasty house fire. It was 2 in the morning, and I woke up choking on smoke so thick I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. The hallway was already engulfed. Turns out, some ancient wiring in my apartment complex decided to give up that night. I had to crawl through literal flames to reach the fire escape, managed to drag myself out, but not before getting seriously messed up across my neck and upper chest. The doctors later told me another 2 minutes and I'd have been toast. Literally. I spent 3 weeks in the ICU in the kind of pain that makes you question if staying alive was the right call. Morphine barely touched it. I ended up with gnarly burn scars, raised pink and red patches that look like melted candle wax. I had 3 surgeries to try fixing the damage. It's better, but still obvious when you look at me. Kids point. Strangers stare. Dating apps went from hot girl summer to are you a survivor of something? How'd I handle the trauma? Like a freaking boss. I didn't have the luxury of falling apart. Bills don't pay themselves, and pity parties don't heal skin grafts. I followed every doctor's order to the letter. Even the weird ointments that smelled like dead fish and stained everything yellow. I did all my physical therapy sessions, even when they hurt like hell and left me crying in my car afterward. I found a therapist who specialized in trauma and never skipped a session, even when she made me talk about stuff that felt like ripping my soul open. When the nurses said I needed to expose the burns to air for healing, I sit in my apartment with my shirt off, staring in the mirror, forcing myself not to look away from what I'd become, not because I'm a masochist, but because I refused to be afraid of my own reflection. I didn't cry about it, or beg for sympathy. I just handled my business, learned to change my own dressings, figured out which shirts wouldn't to rub the sensitive areas raw, and practiced answers to the inevitable what happened to you. Questions from every new person I met. During all this medical hell, where was my loving sister? Nowhere to be found. She visited me in the hospital once, on day 3, brought a half-dead plant from the gift shop, and looked at my burns like she might throw up. She kept her distance, like burn scars might be contagious, stayed for exactly 17 minutes. Yes, I timed it, before suddenly remembering she had a hair appointment she couldn't miss. After that, radio silence. She always had some excuse about work being crazy whenever my parents suggested she help out. Can't drive you to PT, got a meeting. Can't help with grocery shopping, planning a work event. Can't come over and help change your bandages, might break a nail. Meanwhile, she found plenty of time to post beach vacation pics and go to wine tastings with her squad. I took mental notes of all this, filed it away, not in a vindictive way, just recording facts. When someone shows you where you stand on their priority list, pay attention. You know what they say, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. And Melanie showed me, crystal clear, that when things got real, she was a ghost. Fast forward to last year. Melanie gets engaged to this dude, Jason, 32, a standard finance bro with perfect teeth and a country club membership. They met at a charity gala, which Melanie only attended for the Instagram pics, and had been dating for about 2 years. I barely knew the guy beyond awkward small talk at 3 family dinners, where he mostly talked about his CrossFit routine and stock portfolio. Their engagement was peak basic, a rooftop proposal with a photographer, hidden behind some plants, a ring the size of a small planet, and an announcement video that looked like a tampon commercial, soft lighting running through fields, white linen everywhere. She managed to tag 23 brands in that post. We weren't close sisters by any means, but we weren't actively beefing either, just living separate lives in the same city, occasionally showing up at the same family functions, standard stuff. Our conversations were limited to pass the potatoes at Thanksgiving and obligatory happy birthday texts. Then, out of nowhere, she asks me to be one of her bridesmaids, along with 5 of her basic friends. All carbon copies of her with different hair colors, the kind who call each other babe and think personality is drinking matcha and watching The Bachelor. When she asked me, we were at our parents' anniversary dinner. She made a big show of it, presenting me with a cheap gift box, a scrunchie, and a card that said, "I can't say I do without you," in cursive. Mom teared up, Dad got all sentimental. Perfect Kodak moment. I could see right through this move. Pure family optics. Gotta have your only sister in the wedding party, or people might ask questions, right? What kind of bride doesn't include her sister? That would look bad on the wedding website bio. Can't have Aunt Karen whispering about family drama during the reception. I said yes, mostly because I was curious to see how this would play out. Call it morbid curiosity, or maybe emotional self-harm. Part of me thought maybe, just maybe, this was Melanie extending an olive branch, trying to rebuild our relationship. For about a year, I went through all the motions of that wedding planning nonsense. Endless dress shopping, venue visits, registry nonsense, the whole circus. But I noticed patterns early on. She'd always position me on the side in photos, or conveniently ask me to be the one taking pictures instead of being in them. During dress fittings, she'd steer the conversation toward high-necked options that would look good on me, while all her other bridesmaids were picking out strapless or low-cut styles. I observed, said nothing, just collecting data points. One time we were at this bridal shop, and the consultant asked who the maid of honor was. Before anyone could answer, Melanie practically jumped in to say, "Oh, that's my best friend Ashley, the blonde one over there," and then she gave this awkward laugh and added, "My sister and I aren't super close, but family is family, right?" Like I wasn't standing right there. Another time, when we were discussing the bachelorette weekend in Vegas, she casually mentioned, "We'll be spending a lot of time at the pool, so everyone should bring cute swimsuits." Then she looked at me and said, "Or you can just hang at the cabana if that's more comfortable for you." Translation: Please don't show your gross scars at the pool where my hot friends will be taking Instagram pics. I went to that bachelorette party, wore a bikini, posted pictures. Petty? Maybe? Necessary? Absolutely. Then, last month, Melanie asked me to lunch. Just us. Said she wanted to catch up before the wedding chaos got too intense. I already had a feeling something was off. She'd never once wanted to catch up in the 3 years since my accident. Suddenly, she's texting me heart emojis and calling me sis. Red flag city. We met at this overpriced bistro downtown, the kind of place that charges $22 for avocado toast and calls it elevated cuisine. Melanie was already there when I arrived, nursing some pink drink, garnished with edible flowers, and furiously typing on her phone. "Sorry, just confirming some details with the florist," she said without looking up. "Wedding planning is literally killing me." Then she spent 15 minutes circling the drain with cringy small talk about the weather. Can you believe how humid it's been? Her coworkers' drama and her honeymoon plans. We're still deciding between Bali and the Maldives. What do you think photographs better? I sat there, nodding, watching her tap her French manicured nails against her water glass, waiting for the other shoe to drop. This wasn't a sisterly lunch. This was a setup. Finally, after checking her phone for the 12th time, she put it face down on the table, adjusted her posture, and fixed me with what I call her corporate sympathy look. Head slightly tilted, the same look she uses in her LinkedIn profile picture. "I need to talk to you about the wedding photos," she said. I just raised an eyebrow and waited. I knew what was coming, but I wanted to make her say it. Wanted to watch her squirm through every syllable of the nonsense she was about to unleash. Wanted her to own her own ugliness without me helping her soften the blow. "So, Jason and I have been talking," she continued, fidgeting with her napkin. "And we think it might be best for everyone if you weren't in the wedding party." I didn't say a word, just watched her squirm. The silence was making her nervous, which was exactly what I wanted. "It's just that, you know how important these photos are to me. We'll have them forever. And I've been dreaming about this day since I was a little girl." Still nothing from me. Finally, she just said it. "I'm concerned that your condition might be distracting in the photos. It's not that I'm ashamed or anything. It's just about the aesthetic of the day, you know. I kept my face completely neutral, which seemed to freak her out even more. I still want you at the wedding, obviously, she added quickly. Just not standing up at the altar with us. And I was thinking maybe you could do a reading or something, so you're still involved. Before I could even respond, she hit me with, I've already asked my coworker Brittany to take your place, and I told the other bridesmaids there was a change of plans. Brittany's already ordered her dress. This woman had not only decided to kick me out because of my burns, but had already replaced me and told everyone else without even talking to me first. I simply stood up, dropped a 20 on the table for my lunch, and walked out. Didn't raise my voice, didn't call her names, didn't make a scene, just left. The look on her face was priceless. She clearly expected me to either cry or cause a scene, and my calm exit threw her completely off script. She blew up my phone with calls and texts after, which I muted. The next morning I made another decision. I would not be attending that wedding, period. Then my mom called. I was in the middle of a work meeting and saw her name flash on my phone. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something told me to step out and take it. Mother's intuition or whatever, just not in the way she intended. Your sister is absolutely devastated, Mom started. No hello, no how are you, just diving straight into the Melanie show. Apparently, Melanie had gone crying to her, claiming I was being dramatic about some small wedding change and that I stormed out of lunch for no reason, said I was making everything about my accident again and refusing to compromise on anything. I let Mom finish her rant, which included gems like, she's under so much pressure, and weddings make everyone emotional, and my personal favorite, you know how important appearances are to your sister. When she finally ran out of steam, I calmly explained exactly what happened. Word for word, how Melanie said my burns would ruin her precious wedding. Aesthetic. How she had already replaced me before even talking to me, and how she suggested I do a reading instead as a consolation prize. She actually used the word distracting to describe my burns. Mom said they'd mess up the aesthetic of her photos. Mom was quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she was about to take my side for once in my life. Maybe the sheer audacity of what Melanie had done would finally break through decades of golden-to-child syndrome. Then she hit me with, well, it is her special day, honey. Maybe you could be understanding just this once. I'm sure she didn't mean to hurt your feelings. You know how Melanie is about having everything perfect, and those pictures will be hanging on her wall forever. It was like being slapped. Not that I was surprised. Mom had been making excuses for Melanie since we were in diapers. When Melanie stole my toys, I was not learning to share. When Melanie ruined my prom dress accidentally by spilling bleach on it, I was overreacting because accidents happen. When Melanie skipped my college graduation for a weekend in Vegas, I was being too sensitive because she had already planned that trip for months. I replied, interesting stance, and ended the call. No anger, no yelling, just a clean disconnect. Then I blocked her number for 24 hours to give myself time to process the betrayal without additional gasoline on the fire. That night, I sat on my balcony with a bottle of wine and made a list in my journal titled, People Who Actually Care About Me. It was depressingly short: 4 friends, 1 uncle, my therapist, and my neighbor who fed my cat when I was in the hospital. Notably absent: sister, mother, father. Seeing it written down was oddly liberating, like finally admitting to yourself that the relationship you've been trying to save is already dead. For the next week, I focused on my job. I work in IT project management, if anyone's curious, and hitting the gym. Nothing clears your head like heavy deadlifts and rage-fueled cardio. I'd put on my noise-canceling headphones, crank up some Rage Against the Machine, and lift until my arms shook. Then I'd hit the treadmill and run until my lungs burned and sweat washed away the anger, at least temporarily. Work became my sanctuary. I volunteered for extra projects, stayed late debugging systems that weren't even my responsibility, and reorganized the entire department's documentation library. My boss actually pulled me aside to ask if everything was okay since I'd suddenly become aggressively productive. I was in the middle of a 5-mile run around the lake, right at that point where your body is screaming to stop but your mind has gone quiet, when Melanie called. I saw her name flash on my Apple Watch, declined. 2 minutes later, again. 5 minutes later, a third call, declined. Then a text, emergency. Need to talk now. Life or death situation. Followed by, please call me back. It's about the wedding. Urgent. And finally, I'm literally having a panic attack. If you don't call me back, I'm coming to your apartment. Classic Melanie emotional manipulation. When we were kids, she'd threaten to tell our parents I hit her if I didn't let her borrow my clothes. In high school, she'd cry until she got her way. Some things never change. Fine, I texted back. I'll be home at 6. You can come by. But I have a call at 8, so you have until then. She showed up looking like absolute garbage. Puffy eyes, smeared mascara, messy hair, the works. Wearing yoga pants and a hoodie, which for Melanie was practically showing up naked. I'd never seen her in public without full makeup and an outfit that cost more than my monthly rent. I offered her water, nothing else, and waited for whatever drama was about to unfold. No hug, no "are you okay, sis?" No comforting words, just stood there in my living room, arms crossed, waiting for her to speak. "Everything is ruined," she finally said between hiccuping sobs. "The venue canceled on us." Turns out, the perfect venue they booked, some fancy converted barn in wine country that had a 2-year waiting list, had some major problem, either a fire or a plumbing issue. She wasn't clear on the details and seemed annoyed when I asked for clarification. All I gathered was they needed to find a new place with only 3 months until the wedding. "We've been calling everywhere," she said, pacing around my living room. "Everything's booked because it's peak season. Jason's been on the phone all day with rental companies and caterers trying to figure out if we can postpone, but we'd lose all our deposits." I just stood there, watching her meltdown, feeling absolutely nothing, not satisfaction, not pity, just detachment, like watching a stranger's drama unfold. But then she continued, her voice shifting from despair to that fake brightness she uses when she's about to ask for something. "We got the most amazing news. The Rosewood Estate had a cancellation for our date. It's actually even more beautiful than our original venue, like way more perfect for the photos." "Congrats," I said flatly, but she twisted her engagement ring around her finger. "It's a bit more expensive than we budgeted for." Their dream backup venue was available but cost $15,000 more than they had budgeted. Convenient how there's always a more expensive option when someone else might be paying. Then she dropped the real reason she was there. She and Jason had already spent most of their savings on the first venue. Deposit, which they might not get back, and other wedding expenses. She knew I got a pretty substantial insurance settlement from the fire, about $180,000, after legal fees, and wanted me to help out by covering the extra $15,000 for the venue. I almost admired the sheer audacity. She kicks me out of being a bridesmaid because my burns might ruin her photos but now wants me to pay $15,000 for a venue where I'm not even welcome in the wedding party. I leaned back in my chair and said, "Let me get this straight. You removed me from your bridal party because my burns might affect your photos. Now, you want me to give you $15,000 for a venue where I'm not good enough to stand with you? That's quite a business proposal." She immediately started crying harder, saying I was selfish and vindictive and that if I really loved her, I'd want her to have her dream wedding, regardless of our small disagreement. "Small disagreement?" I repeated. "You told me my burn scars would ruin your wedding aesthetic. That's not a small disagreement. That's you showing me exactly how you see me, as damaged goods to be hidden away." "You're twisting my words," she cried. "I never said damaged goods. You always make everything so dramatic. Your exact words were that my condition would be distracting in your photos. You were concerned about the aesthetic. Those were your words, Melanie. Fine, maybe I could have worded it better, but it doesn't change the fact that this is my wedding, and I just want it to be perfect. Is that so wrong?" I walked to my door, opened it, and said, "I've already allocated those funds for something worthwhile. This meeting is over." As she was leaving, she turned and said, "I knew you'd make this all about you. It always has to be about you and your accident, doesn't it?" I closed the door without another word. Then I sent a text to my boss, asking for a day off, and blocked my entire family's numbers for 24 hours. I needed to think. For the next 2 weeks, my phone was blowing up with calls and texts from my parents, saying I was tearing the family apart over petty nonsense and that I should be the bigger person. Apparently, Melanie had told them I refused to help because I was jealous of her happiness, conveniently, leaving out the part where she kicked me out of the wedding party because of my burns. The messages got progressively more manipulative. "Your sister has been dreaming of this day her whole life. Family should support each other in times of need. She made one mistake, and you're punishing her for it. After everything we've done for you. I didn't engage with any of it. I set up message filters and went about my business. The only person I contacted was my uncle, Dad's brother, a straight-shooting, ex-military guy who never bought into the family's nonsense. Your sister's showing you who she is, he told me over beers at his place. Believe her. And your parents are showing you where their priorities lie. None of this is a surprise if you've been paying attention. I have been, I said. Good. So what are you going to do with that settlement money? I told him my plan, investing 50% in a diversified portfolio, using 30% as seed money for a burn survivor support network I was developing, and the remaining 20% for myself. Advanced training in my field and a decent apartment in a better area. Smart. He nodded. The best revenge is building a good life they can't take credit for. Uncle Steve has always been the voice of reason in our family. When I was in the hospital after the fire, he was there almost every day, not hovering or being weird about it, just present, reading a book in the corner of my room or bringing decent coffee to replace the hospital sludge. He never looked at my burns with pity or disgust, just matter-of-fact acknowledgement. Burns are just evidence you survived something that tried to kill you, he told me once. Nothing to be ashamed of. My parents showed up at my apartment unannounced last Saturday. They claimed they wanted to mediate, but it was obvious they came to pressure me in person since I wasn't answering their calls. My mom actually had the nerve to say, "You received that settlement to help you move forward with your life. Don't you think helping your sister would be a positive way to use some of it?" I looked at her calmly and said, "That money is funding a support network for burn survivors. I've already signed the paperwork. The money is allocated, but surely you could spare some of it," my dad chimed in. "Melanie is family. The same family member who kicked me out of her wedding because my burn scars would ruin her photos?" I replied. Their expressions told me everything. They already knew. Melanie had told them exactly why she kicked me out of the wedding party, and they were still taking her side. When I pointed this out, my dad said, "We know she could have handled that better. But she's under a lot of stress with the wedding. You know how she can be when she's stressed." "So stress justifies cruelty now?" I asked. "Interesting standard. Don't be so dramatic," my mom sighed. She didn't mean it like that. She explicitly said my burns would ruin her wedding photos. There's only one way to mean that. "Well, you have to admit they are noticeable," my mom said, glancing at my neck. Maybe she just wanted her special day to be perfect. In that moment, I realized how cruel and dark they are on the inside, not giving a damn about how I would feel. They thought my sister was justified in excluding me because of how I looked, the same parents who'd spent my entire childhood preaching about inner beauty and character mattering more than appearances. I stood up. "This conversation is over. I won't be giving Melanie any money. I won't be attending the wedding, and I need you both to leave now. You can't just cut family off like—" Mom started. "I can, and I am. This isn't a negotiation." My dad tried one more guilt trip. "Your sister will be heartbroken if you're not there." "My sister will be relieved," I corrected him. "She already told me my burns would distract from her perfect day. I'm doing her a favor by not showing up." After they left, my phone started blowing up. Mom sent a barrage of texts. "I can't believe how selfish you're being after everything we've done for you. This is tearing your father apart. Melanie has always been there for you. Family should stick together. It's just money. It's not like you're using it. You're breaking your sister's heart." I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. The audacity was almost impressive. My burns had consumed every aspect of my life for 3 years. The physical pain, the emotional trauma, the stares, the uncomfortable questions, the dating disasters, the career setbacks from missing work for surgeries. Through all of it, Melanie had been a ghost. But now that she needed cash, suddenly I was family again. The next morning, I met my Uncle Steve for breakfast at our usual diner. He's my dad's younger brother, ex-military, built like a tank but with the softest heart. When I told him everything that had happened, he just shook his head slowly. "You know," he said after thinking for a moment, "you don't need to shout the truth from the rooftops. Just make it available to anyone who asks." Uncle Steve has always been like this. Quiet wisdom dropped casually between bites of pancakes. While my parents were busy fawning over Melanie's every achievement, he was the one who showed up to my debate competitions and science fairs. When I was in the hospital after the fire, he visited every day, bringing books and podcasts to distract me from the pain. "What exactly are you suggesting?" I asked. Well, he said, stirring his coffee, your sister is probably already spinning this story to make you look bad, telling everyone you're jealous or bitter or whatever. So have your side ready, but don't broadcast it. Just the facts, no emotion. Let people draw their own conclusions. Then my Aunt Lisa, Mom's sister, texted me. Just heard what happened with Melanie's wedding. That's messed up. You good? My cousin Ryan, Mom told me what went down. If you need anything, I'm here. And for what it's worth, your burns don't bother anyone except shallow people. Even my 80-year-old grandmother, who rarely texts, heard about wedding drama. Melanie wrong. Coming to visit you next month instead. Love you. My phone stayed silent from my immediate family for 3 days. When it finally rang, it was my uncle again. Your sister's been calling everyone, trying to do damage control, he said. Not working well for her. She's claiming you're exaggerating. Let her, I replied. Facts are facts. The next day, I got a text from Melanie. We need to talk now. I didn't respond. 2 hours later, she was at my door. How dare you spread lies about me to the family? She started immediately. I leaned against the doorframe, not inviting her in. I shared exactly what happened. If that makes you look bad, that's not my problem. You're trying to ruin my wedding. No, I'm just not participating in it. There's a difference. Everyone's calling me to ask if I really kicked you out because of your burns. Grandma is threatening not to come now. You've turned the whole family against me right before my wedding. I simply told the truth. You told me my burns would ruin your photos, then asked me for $15,000. Those are facts. You're twisting what I said. I never meant it like that. How else could you have meant it, Melanie? Please, enlighten me. She fumbled for words, then switched tactics. Look, I'm sorry if what I said hurt your feelings. That wasn't my intention, but you're deliberately trying to sabotage my wedding by turning the family against me, and that's just spiteful. I didn't turn anyone against you. Your own actions did that. She demanded I fix this by telling everyone I misunderstood her intentions. I declined. This conversation is over, I said, closing the door as she continued to yell. 2 weeks passed. I heard through my uncle that Melanie had secured a different venue, less expensive, outside the city. Apparently, several relatives had declined their invitations after hearing what happened, including Grandma and Uncle Steve. My parents continued their pressure campaign. I stopped answering their calls entirely and set up an email filter that automatically replied, I will not be attending the wedding or providing financial support. Further discussion on this topic is closed. Then Jason, Melanie's fiancé, reached out, asking to meet out of nowhere. I agreed, more out of strategic consideration than emotional interest. We met at a coffee shop near my office. He looked uncomfortable as hell, constantly adjusting his collar and avoiding eye contact. I knew about Melanie asking you not to be a bridesmaid because of your burns, he admitted right away. I told her it was wrong, but... His voice trailed off. But you still went along with it, I finished for him. He nodded. I'm caught between supporting my future wife and knowing she was unfair to you. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you more. Your apology is noted, I said. Was there something specific you wanted from this meeting? Jason tried to suggest a compromise, me attending the wedding as a guest. I shut it down. He looked stunned, said I was being harsh. I told him this wasn't about feelings, it was about respect, something Melanie clearly lacked. She excluded me because of my scars and still expected money. That's not how this works. He mumbled something about me wanting to hurt her. I told him my boundaries weren't up for debate. Later, Melanie texted asking to meet. I agreed one last time and set a 30-minute limit. She kicked things off by acting like she was doing me a favor, claiming she was willing to forgive me for the drama. When I didn't bite, she pivoted, called me too sensitive, said it was all about logistics, then offered to reinstate me as a bridesmaid if I helped with venue costs. I shut it all down. No bridesmaid role, no wedding, no money, no contact. She exploded, saying I couldn't just cut her off because we're family. I told her family shows respect, and she treated me like a problem to hide and a wallet to drain. When she accused me of twisting her words, I stood up and ended it. Conversation over, relationship over, done. On the wedding day, I obviously didn't attend. Neither did my uncle. I spent the day finalizing paperwork for the burn survivor network I was funding. According to what I heard later, the wedding was tense. Several relatives who did attend made comments about my absence, forcing Melanie to keep explaining why her only sister wasn't there. Grandma apparently showed up for the ceremony, but left before the reception, making a point to tell several people she was disappointed in how Melanie had handled things. My cousin sent me a few pics. The venue was clearly a downgrade from what she'd wanted. A mid-range hotel ballroom rather than the luxury estate she'd been planning on, and Melanie looked stressed in most of the photos. Not that I took any pleasure in that. Well, maybe a little. The day after they returned from their honeymoon, a long weekend in Miami rather than the 2 weeks in Europe they'd planned, Melanie showed up at my apartment unannounced. I let her in, one last time. "The wedding wasn't what I imagined without you there," she started. "I regret how things unfolded between us." I waited, giving her the chance to actually apologize. Instead, she said, "I could have worded things better about the bridesmaid situation. But you overreacted and made everything worse by telling the family. Still, I'm willing to put it all behind us." "No," I said. "No, I don't accept your non-apology. No, I'm not interested in putting this behind us. No, I don't want to continue a relationship where I'm valued only when convenient." "So that's it? You're just done with me, with our parents?" "Yes. I've reallocated my insurance settlement. Half is invested. The rest is funding a burn survivor network and improving my own life. I've signed a lease on a new apartment. I'm changing my phone number next week." "You're choosing your burns over your family," she said with disgust. "I'm choosing respect over disrespect. It's that simple." She left without another word. It's been 3 months since I walked away, and honestly, best decision I ever made. I moved, new apartment, new neighborhood, way less chaos. Cut ties completely. New number, new email, cleaned house on social media. Only Uncle Steve has my contact info, and he's not the type to fold under pressure no matter how often my parents bug him, and that $15,000 Melanie begged for. I put it into something that actually matters. Phoenix Rising, a burn survivor network I launched last month. Started small with Zoom support groups and a basic website. Now we've already got dozens of people reaching out, showing up, finding connection and strength again. Last week, I hosted a session with a 19-year-old girl who'd just gotten out of the hospital after a cooking accident. She kept her camera off, didn't say much, but by the end she turned it on, saw me, scars and all, living my life without hiding. She cried, said she thought her life was over. That moment was worth every cent I ever spent and then some. The therapy program we launched, full, 10 participants already, with a waiting list growing. Twice a week, they meet with a trauma specialist who's also a burn survivor. It's helping, really helping, and that's the kind of legacy I'd rather leave behind. My circle's tight now. Solid, real people who treat me like a human being, not a problem to fix or a wallet to tap. My neighbor brings fresh bread and never flinches at my scars. Jamal, my coworker, called out a client mid-meeting for making a low-key rude comment. Taylor held my hand during my last surgery and stayed until the bandages came off. And Dr. Chen, my therapist, gave it to me straight. Walking away from people who keep hurting you isn't cold. It's survival. I also started dating again. Met him through a mutual friend. First date, he noticed the scars, asked once, listened, then moved on. No awkward silence, no pity, just calm respect. That alone felt like a win. Got a promotion too. The training I invested in finally paid off, and now I'm leading a team on a major project. Funny how things start falling into place when you stop dragging dead weight behind you. As for Melanie and Jason, word is they're already hitting a rough patch. Apparently, the wedding drama didn't just disappear after the cake got cut. Jason's been asking Uncle Steve how I'm doing, which tells me he might finally be seeing what I saw all along. But that's not my circus. I used to think that fire ruined me. Took so much, my peace, my confidence, the body I used to recognize. But now I see it for what it was. The thing that burned away everything fake and forced me to rebuild from the ground up. No more pretending, no more shrinking, no more accepting crumbs and calling it love. Some people never change because they don't think they need to. That's fine. Let them stay the same. I'm not. Life's too short to keep people around just because they share your blood. Family is who shows up, not who shares a last name. And sometimes, the thing that nearly breaks you is what ends up showing you your purpose. That fire didn't destroy me. It set me free. And as Uncle Steve always says, the best revenge is living well.